This next video is all about fish farming, which takes into account a lot of the stuff that we spoke about in prior videos, to be honest. But the idea of fish farming is to stop trawling and stop us exploiting wild fish reserves. And the main reason for that, why the idea this sort of came through, is this thing called trawling. So this is just to put a little bit of some context on it. These ships used to basically have these enormous nets that have this huge mouth at the front and these rollers on the bottom, these quite heavy doors, they call them, at the front of it as well. And they literally span the whole depth of the ocean at some points in shallower waters and catch anything that is swimming in this whole vicinity, like a huge gaping mouth. But the problem is, actually, you'd be shocked to know that actually, if you send a load of heavy rollers and massive metal doors onto the bottom of the seafloor, it can damage it massively. Huge amounts. So you can scar. It's called scarring the seafloor. All that lovely coral that we've got either side is getting absolutely decimated. Equally, it's not particularly selective. So you get a lot of stuff in it, like dolphins and turtles, known as bycatch. So you are destroying this whole environment. It's horrendous for for sort of ocean habitats. So someone very clever went, right, well, why don't we just farm fish? Why don't we just get these massive nets, put them in a natural body of water, keep everything in, and just start growing the fish that we like to eat everywhere, which is actually a fairly good idea. We're not going to destroy the habitats with fishing, and it will have less of an effect. However, there's problems with it, and this food isn't as clean and as clever as it seems. Okay, so the first thing you need to think about is actually look how chock full these nets are. This is a breeding ground for parasites and disease. So actually, if a parasite, and I couldn't tell you any fish parasite, it's not really my area, but these sort of like tick-like things, these parasites and disease that get into that fish, if they get into there, it's going to spread like wildfire. So you can sort of have quite poor quality living for these fish. Secondly, so predators like sea lions and all these things that we love to look at and used to go to SeaWorld to watch, actually are probably going to get attracted to areas like this, where there's loads of their food, and actually you can get wild predators jumping in here, getting stuck and dying. So you're not actually saving the problem of sort of catching the predators with them. Thirdly, fish poo. So that poo is very nitrogenous, got lots of nitrates and other things in it, and nitrogen-containing compounds. They also pee, which has lots of ammonia, so nitrates as well. And hopefully you should be thinking, oh, well, if we're filling a body of water with loads of nitrates and ammonium, and loads of nitrogen-containing compound, we're probably going to get eutrophication. So actually you can get huge amounts, because of how concentrated they're living, you can basically pollute that whole area anyway. So you get some fish out of it, but they're basically swimming around in their own muck, and that can then cause eutrophication, which will then eventually kill the fish as well. And finally, say for example we want to grow salmon, and I don't know, we're in, where does salmon not grow? Let's just say Vietnam. Okay, so actually salmon don't usually grow there. There is a fair reasonable expectation that some of the salmon will get out into the natural water. Some may jump out, some might be taken out by a sea lion and get away, but you are then introducing invasive species as well. Just to put into example how big an invasive species can be, goldfish weren't grown for food, but they were introduced. They're an Asian fish. They're not meant to be anywhere else. And actually, what ends up happening is these fish have been introduced into North America, and they're now being found in over 48 states. So actually there's a huge amount that if a fish gets out, it can get everywhere. And we'll talk about the effects that invasive species can have, but you need to be aware that actually you can't just grow things everywhere and hope that they stay sort of contained. That there is a very large chance that actually those salmon or whatever we're growing there will escape. So it's also a risk for invasive species.